Pyrrhus and Cineas by Simone de Beauvoir. Translation by Marybeth Timmerman. Read to you by William Wilczak. Introduction. Plutarch tells us that one day Pyrrhus was devising projects of conquest. "We are going to subjugate Greece first," he was saying. "And after that," said Cineas, "we will vanquish Africa. After Africa, we will go on to Asia. We will conquer Asia Minor, Arabia. And after that, we will go on as far as India. After India?" "Ah," said Pyrrhus, "I will rest." "Why not rest right away?" said Cineas. Cineas seems wise. What's the use of leaving if it is to return home? What's the use of starting if you must stop? And yet, if I don't first decide to stop, it seems to me to be even more pointless to leave. "I will not say the letter A," says the schoolboy stubbornly. "But why?" "Because after that I will have to say the letter B." He knows that if he starts, he will never be finished with it. After the letter B, it will be the entire alphabet. Syllables, words, books, tests, and a career. Each minute a new task will throw him forward toward a new goal, without rest. If it is never to be finished, what's the use of starting? Even the architect of the Tower of Babel thought that the sky was a ceiling, and that someone would reach it one day. If Pyrrhus could push the limits of his conquests back beyond the earth, beyond the stars and the furthest nebulae, to an infinity that would be constantly fleeing before him, his undertaking would only be more foolish because of it. His efforts would be dispersed without ever coming together for any goal. Viewed by reflection, all human projects therefore seem absurd, because they exist only by setting limits for themselves, and one can always overstep these limits, asking oneself derisively, "Why as far as this? Why not further? What's the use?" "I found that no goal was worth the trouble of any effort," said Benjamin Constant's hero. Such are often the thoughts of the adolescent, when the voice of reflection awakens in him. As a child, he was like Pyrrhus. He ran, he played without ever asking himself questions, and the objects that he created seemed to him endowed with an absolute existence. They carried within themselves their reason for being. But he discovered one day that he had the power to surpass his own ends. There are no longer ends. Only pointless occupations still exist for him. He rejects them. "The dice are loaded," he says. He looks at his elders with scorn. How is it possible for them to believe in their undertakings? They are dupes. Some have killed themselves in order to put an end to this ridiculous illusion, and it was indeed the only way to end it. Because as long as I remain alive, Cineas harasses me in vain, saying, "And after that? What's the use?" In spite of everything, my heart beats, my hand reaches out, new objects are born, and push me forward. Wise men have wanted to see the sign of man's incurable folly in this stubbornness. But can a perversion, so essential, still be called a perversion? Where will we find the truth about man if it is not in him? Reflection cannot stop the momentum of our spontaneity, but reflection is also spontaneous. Man plants, builds, conquers, he wants, he loves. There is always an "after that?" It could be that from moment to moment he throws himself into new undertakings with an ardor that is always new, like Don Juan deserting one woman only to seduce another. But even Don Juan gets tired one fine day. Between Pyrrhus and Cineas, the dialogue starts over with no end. And yet Pyrrhus must decide. He stays or he leaves. If he stays, what will he do? If he leaves, how far will he go? "We must cultivate our garden," says Candide. This advice will not be of much help to us, because what is my garden? There are men who claim to work the entire earth, and others will find a pot of flowers too vast. Some say carelessly, "What happens when we're gone is none of our concern," while the dying Charlemagne cried at the sight of the Normans' ships. A young woman gets irritated because she has leaky shoes that take in water. If I say to her, "What does that matter? Think of the millions of men who are dying of hunger in the middle of China," she answers me angrily, "They are in China, and it's my shoe that has a hole." However, another woman may cry about the horror of the Chinese famine. If I say to her, "What does that matter to you? You are not hungry," she would look at me with scorn. "What does my own comfort matter?" So how to know what is mine? The disciples of Christ asked, "Who is my neighbor?" What, then, is the measure of a man? What goals can he set for himself? And what hopes are permitted him?